Hey everyone, this is daveac.blip.tv and this is my vblog 145 for Friday the 29th of April 2011, and it's St Catherine's Day, but more importantly here in the UK it's the Royal Wedding Day. Yes, William and Kate, I think I can still call her Kate, got married earlier today. I watched a little bit of the ceremony and very grand indeed it looked too. So the wine at the end will be in the form of a toast to them. Yes, after a busy week, Dave AC relaxes to toast the royal couple with his wine. Well, let's start off with the podcasting news and Doctor Who news as usual. The Gallifreyan MC, Doctor Who Podshock, earlier they put up their episode 243, which was about Elizabeth Sladen's passing, and of course the New York premiere report when they did the cinema screenings of the first two episodes of Series 6 of Doctor Who, and Anthony and Jessica from the Mythological Dimensions in Doctor Who came in and did a little report on that. But the main event for the Podshock is coming up on Sunday the 1st of May. They're doing a live show on TalkShoe. Their TalkShoe ID is 23358, and their show will be at 4 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, and Podshock will be talking about both episodes, parts 1 and 2. That's The Impossible Astronaut and Day of the Moon on TalkShoe. But of course, hopefully you will be on TalkShoe earlier than that, because our TalkShoe ID 54821, the Cultdom Collective, will be starting at 2 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, and we will be starting promptly, I hope, so we can do it all in about an hour and 40 minutes and give everybody a break before they continue on to Podshock. We last Sunday talked about episode 1 of Series 6, The Impossible Astronaut. So that is already up on the feeds. So we will be talking about the second part, Day of the Moon, and of course we will giving our ratings for the two-parter as a whole. Now, I said it was a very busy week for me, because what we did last week, we did a double-length show in one piece. We gave the Cultdom Collective their opportunity to give the tribute to Elizabeth Sladen and Sarah Jane Smith, our Sarah Jane Smith, and then I had to edit those into two separate programs. But unfortunately, because some people had a few audio issues, it took quite a bit longer than I thought it would. And also the second one, the Elizabeth Sladen one I put up first, and then the second one I put up on about the Tuesday was the one about the Impossible Astronaut. My own local recording, the file size was too large, so I basically had to edit it twice. So it was a busy week. But not only that, Ian, Mike and myself also got around to doing our commentary on The Impossible Astronaut, and that just went up early yesterday. And so there are 3 Cultdom Collective shows this week. The Cultdom Tribute to Elizabeth Sladen and our Sarah Jane Smith. Remember, we did a studio one with Ian, Mike and myself prior to that last week. There's the review of episode 1, The Impossible Astronaut, and our commentary. And of course you'll find them on many podcasting sites, on iTunes, or indeed go to cultdom.com. Well, that's the main Doctor Who podcasting news. Just before I talk a little bit about some other Doctor Who news, let me just mention another podcast that I listened to. I was going to mention last week, but didn't have time, and that is Ramble with Russell. Yes, Ramble with Russell Hale. This is at ramblingrus, all one word, .libsyn.com. 248 episodes he's now up, so he's almost at 250. So well done, Russell. The most recent one I've listened to, in actual fact, is episode 246, which was really great because he interviewed Mercedes McNabb, who played Harmony on both Buffy and Angel. He also talked to Claire Kramer, who played Glory in Buffy, one of the big bads, and there's lots of other stuff. They're always very well done, Russell's shows. Well done, Russell. Great. Okay, one little bit more news, and that's of course going back to the doctorwhonews.net site. They put up a link to, in actual fact you can actually watch it on their page, or you can go to the BBC YouTube page, a prequel now for episode 3 of Doctor Who, and that is called The Curse of the Black Spot. It's only a 30-second one. Now, I could play it here for you, but in actual fact there's not much. Most of the audio is just atmospheric rather than a lot of dialogue. So go to the BBC YouTube, or go to doctorwhonews.net, and I'm sure there's plenty of other sites that have a link to that little prequel. Okay, that's the Doctor Who news, and as I say, I'm in a bit of a relaxed holiday mood today. I've got the sun coming down, he's got his friends coming over later, I've got some jobs to do around the house, so I want to get this done up, and also I'm waiting to taste and toast with my wine. A couple of sort of techie pieces of news. Main one for me, of course, is this big kerfuffle over PlayStation 3. About the fact that all this data has been broken into. 70-odd million users around the world, 3 million in the UK. Now, there has been at least one piece of good news today. Sony have said that the actual credit card information was indeed encrypted. Now, we don't know how strong that encryption was. Hopefully it's not just 256-bit encryption, but the full 1024 encryption or even higher, and hopefully that information is still secure. The unfortunate thing is, of course, with the network down, you can't actually go up there to change your passwords and things, so it is a little bit of a worry for PlayStation users. And of course, if you're an online gamer, it's more than that. It's really for about 10 days they haven't been able to actually play their network games. So very big news. Apple, they're in a little bit of a thing as well on the Engadget site. That's www.engadget.com. They've got an item about the new white iPhone that's finally, after about 10 months, coming out. Apparently it's thicker than the black iPhone. Now, if you were cynical, you could say, well, the reason is they've taken a black iPhone and just put an extra shell either side of it to make it a white one. But I don't think that's the reason. I think the reason, and they mention it on this site, is that because it's white, maybe in some of these countries, hot countries like America, where it gets what we would say up into the mid-30s, but where you would say it gets up to the 90s, presumably that white is absorbing too much of the sun's heat when people are outside, and perhaps it's in danger of overheating. So perhaps they put a thin extra layer of insulation inside. But in any case, if you've got an old phone and a case for it, there's a possibility that your white phone might not fit into that case. Okay, not really big news, I know. Oh, and there's one little bit of sci-fi news that I do have, and that is that Merlin Series 4 now looks as though it will air later this year, maybe the end of September or early October. There was some thought with Doctor Who being split into, 7 episodes in the spring and then the other 6 episodes of the Christmas special towards the end of the year, that Merlin would get pushed out until next year. But it appears not. It appears as though Merlin Series 4 will go ahead either late September or early October. So that is great news. And of course, we're hoping that the episodes of the Sarah Jane Adventures that were filmed will be able to be shown either the end of this year or maybe early next year. Okay, that's pretty much it. Oh yes, there was one nice bit of science news, but again, tinged with a little bit of sadness. Later today, the final trip of the Space Shuttle Endeavour. Yes, it's on its final 14-day mission. It takes off from Florida, the Kennedy Space Station, and funnily enough, that was mentioned in Doctor Who, wasn't it? That takes off at 3:47 p.m. local time, and that for people in the UK is 8:47 British summer time. So I really do like that. I watched a BBC documentary about the history of the Space Shuttle. Really great to watch. Of course, there was that very sad event where they had the teacher that won that trip aboard, and the thing exploded. One of the O-rings on the booster rockets gave way, and there was that awful horn-shaped explosion. Very, very tragic. Took a long time for, well, the shuttle, of course, was grounded for many, many months, and it was tragic. But overall, the shuttle program has been an outstanding success. I think the first one launched in 1981, so they've been going for 30 years. And I think they're only planned to go for about 20 years. So really, really good. Well, 10 minutes, so we've done quite well, even though I haven't done any music and I haven't done a book. Apologies for that. We'll try and have much more content in next week. Let's get to the wine so I can toast the royal couple. And I did think about having a sparkling wine. Not anything French, I can't afford any French champagne, but perhaps an English sparkling wine. But I thought, well, the chances are I'll have a glass of it and I won't drink the rest. So I've stuck to my usual have a red. Now, I don't think I'm going to try and pronounce the name of that wine at the top. But it is Lalenda, is it? It's a Malbec and Syrah from Argentina, 2010. Ah, there, it's focused at last. Now, while it's focused, let's turn it round. And I'm going to come in slowly. It's jerking. Sorry, I think my computer's downloaded a brilliant Firefox update. Just saw a little message. Focus, for heaven's sake. Right, freeze frame quickly. Okay, 13.5%, 2010. Why do I show the label? Well, because as I've said before, I'm not really anybody about wine. I just enjoy my wine, and I'm always searching for the right descriptions. So what I'm going to do for a couple of times is read what it says and then see if it conforms to that when I taste it. So this says flavours of wild red fruit and ripe plums with a touch of spiciness and a smooth velvety texture. Well, we'll see. It's been poured out. It should have. I've not poured a lot out because I've got some jobs to do today, but I'm getting some fruit certainly from it. Let's have a taste. Now, damson. I would say more like a damsony taste. That sort of plum, but with a sort of a, maybe not a totally ripe plum. Plum that's, you've bitten into it a little bit early. It's a little bit firm. It's a little bit tart. That's the word. And it's not an oaky edge I've got to it. Now, let me just taste that again. Not saying it's unpleasant, but there's a rather sharp undercut taste to that. A little, I don't mean taint, it's not cork taint, but it's a little, it's a screw cap for a start, but it's a little bit of a slightly, not an oakiness, but a slightly dry, a slight bitterness to the aftertaste. Not totally convinced with that. It's certainly not smooth at the end. It's slightly rough and slightly bitter. It's got a nice fruit. The initial taste is nice, and it is got that sort of plummy, damsony taste. But it's not integrated. It is a little sharp and a little tart. It was, I think, £5.20, but it was reduced a couple of quid, so it's normally about a £7 wine. So it's, call it a $10 to $12 wine that I got for under $10. Verdict, not totally convinced with that. That's going to have to mellow in the glass a little bit. Otherwise, I certainly won't buy that again. No, maybe it will be better. I have had wines on this show before where I've come back on the next week and said, when I finished that wine later in the evening or the second day, it had mellowed out nicely. That has just got a little bit of an edge to it, a little bit rough, certainly not velvety smooth. Okay, that's a long enough. Oh, I didn't it's good enough to toast anyway to William and Kate on their royal wedding, and I will try next week to have more content for you. With that, this is daveac saying, catch you next time. Bye all. Bye.